My mother tried to rip my engagement ring off my swollen finger at Christmas dinner and snarled, "You feminist beach, you've destroyed everything I taught you." When my fiancé begged her to stop, she screamed, "You destroyed my daughter. She was supposed to be pure." I didn't say a word. I couldn't. I was frozen in a state of shock and disbelief that felt like being submerged in ice water. That was 8 months ago. This morning she was begging to take back everything she did. Her voice a pathetic whine through the prison phone system. But forgiveness is a currency I no longer carry. My name is Mia, and my mom is the most backwards person I've ever met. That's not an exaggeration. It's a statement of fact, as observable as gravity. Ever since my sister Elena and I were little, she would make us practice being perfect wives every single day. Our childhood was not filled with cartoons and scraped knees, but with a relentless, bizarre boot camp for domestic servitude. We had to walk around the house balancing books on our heads while carrying trays of food, our small arms trembling under the weight of her expectations. And if we spilled even one drop, if a single pea rolled off a plate, we'd have to scrub the entire kitchen floor with a toothbrush until the reflection of her disappointed face stared back at us from the gleaming linoleum. Our bedtime routine wasn't stories, it was practicing sentences. We would stand in front of her like little soldiers of subservience and recite phrases like, "Whatever you think is best, honey," and "I'm sorry for speaking out of turn." While I always felt gross doing it like the words were a foul taste in my mouth, Elena was Mom's little housewife in training. She absorbed it all, a sponge for our mother's toxic ideology. By 15, she was ironing her boyfriend Derek's shirts every morning before school, pressing the creases with a focused intensity that was genuinely disturbing. She packed his lunches with little love notes that said stuff like, "I exist to make you happy," and "My only purpose is to serve you." And instead of our mom being concerned that her teenage daughter was acting like a 1950s servant, she bought Elena a $300 KitchenAid mixer to award her. The gleaming silver appliance sat on the counter like a trophy for self-annihilation. Even though I hated how my mom wanted me to act, a desperate childish part of me still wanted her validation. So I poured everything into school. I did extracurriculars, had a bunch of friends, was every teacher's pet. I built a fortress of achievements, hoping that if I couldn't earn her love through obedience, I could dazzle her with success. So when I finally got accepted into Northwestern's business school, my mom was the first person I told. I held the thick, embossed envelope in my hands, my heart hammering with a pathetic, hopeful rhythm. "Congrats, honey, was all she said, her voice flat before taking the letter from my hand. "But I really wish you put this much effort into finding a nice boy to take care of you." She didn't even look at it again before throwing my acceptance letter into the trash with the coffee grounds and eggshells. The breaking point, the moment the final thread of hope snapped, came a week later. I came home from school to find Elena in the kitchen, a purplish-black bruise blooming under her eye, poorly covered with a chalky layer of concealer. When I tried to talk to her about it, she actually laughed a high, brittle sound. "Oh, this Derek just gets a little carried away sometimes. It's actually really sweet. It means he can't control himself around me because he loves me so much." That's when I knew I'd lost her. She wasn't just brainwashed, she was a willing participant in her own destruction, reciting the classic lines of an abuse victim as if they were romantic poetry. But if that's what my mom wanted, then I figured I should at least try to make her happy just once. So in the summer before moving out for college, I dated the worst guy I could find just to get one single approving nod from my mother. My BF Tyrone would check my phone, told me my friends were bad influences, and made me share my location 24/7. I knew it was wrong. Every fiber of my being screamed that it was wrong, but when I brought him home for Independence Day, my mom's face lit up. She even hugged me a stiff, unfamiliar embrace for the first time in 3 years. "See?" she whispered in my ear. "A man who knows how to keep his woman safe." Fast forward 4 years. I graduated with a bachelor's degree in finance and a mountain of student debt. More importantly, I had been in therapy for months, painstakingly untangling the knots of my upbringing. And I'd found an amazing partner named James. He was the oldest brother of 3 little sisters, and he treated me like a queen. He listened when I talked, actually made me laugh, and planned every date with a thoughtfulness that felt like a foreign language I was finally beginning to understand. He was everything my mother had warned me against: respectful, supportive, and completely unimpressed by archaic gender roles. So when Christmas came around, I was actually excited. I thought maybe, just maybe, my family would see how happy I was. James kept reassuring me that things would be okay, that my mom would love him. For a second, a foolish, naive second, I actually believed him. When I knocked on the door of my childhood home, I had more confidence than I'd ever had in that house. But Elena was the one to open the door, and she looked like a ghost of herself. The bruises were still there, just in different places, poorly covered with what looked like Dollar Tree concealer. She was walking with a slight limp she tried to hide. My heart shattered, and I guess hers did too, because as soon as she saw James take my coat to hang it up, she gasped, "Oh my gosh, Mia, you're emasculating him in public." James, ever polite, introduced himself and mentioned how proud he was of my recent promotion at the finance firm where I worked. That's when my mom's face went from a fake, brittle smile to pure, unadulterated rage. "A real man doesn't let his woman outshine him," she hissed, her voice a low, venomous whisper. She grabbed my wrist, her grip so hard it left instant marks. And that's when she noticed my engagement ring. "You feminist beach, you've destroyed everything I taught you," she screamed, the sound ripping through the festive atmosphere. She then launched herself at me, literally, trying to rip the ring off my finger. The delicate band dug into my skin as she twisted and pulled. Elena, my own sister, jumped up and grabbed my shoulders, holding me still while Mom kept pulling. My finger was turning a terrifying shade of purple, and the pain was white-hot and blinding. James immediately called 911 while trying to pull them off me, his voice calm but firm as he reported an assault in progress. I figured by this point, with the mention of the police, my parents would realize they were assaulting me. But no. My mom, seeing she was losing her grip, let go of my hand, grabbed a kitchen knife from the counter block, and lunged at James. "You destroyed my daughter. She was supposed to be pure." Meanwhile, my finger felt like it was being torn off, and I couldn't stop screaming. The world had narrowed to the excruciating pain and the sight of my mother wielding a weapon against the man I loved. Luckily, the cops arrived fast. The sound of the siren was the most beautiful thing I'd ever heard. By the time the paramedics checked me out, my finger was dislocated and deeply cut from the ring being forced against the bone. By the time the substances from the hospital wore off, the shock had curdled into a cold, hard fury. My mother kept calling me her number, flashing on my screen relentlessly. James was telling me he was sorry for embarrassing me for causing a scene and asking me if I was sure I still liked him after all this. But all the noise around me simply came in one ear and out the other because a decision had crystallized in my mind. I was going to have a relationship with James, and I was going to make my family back off. And make my family back off? I did. I blocked every single number, Mom, Elena, even distant relatives who might pass messages. James, bless his tech-savvy heart, helped me change all my passwords and set up new email accounts. My hands shook as I deleted years of photos from my phone, birthdays, holidays, the few and far between moments that had looked happy on the surface. But each deletion felt like cutting a rope that had been strangling me my entire life. The first week was quiet, too quiet. The silence was a gaping wound. I threw myself into work, staying late at the office to avoid the echoing emptiness of my thoughts. My finger still throbbed, a constant physical reminder of the attack. James had bought me a simple silver chain to wear the ring on until the swelling went down. My coworkers noticed the bandage and the splint, but I just mumbled, "kitchen accident," and changed the subject, the lie tasting like ash in my mouth. Then, on Thursday morning, my boss, McCatherine, called me into her office. She had this weird expression on her face, like she'd eaten something sour. "Mia, I received a concerning call about you yesterday. Your mother claims you stole family heirlooms worth thousands of dollars." My stomach dropped. I gripped the armrest of the chair until my knuckles went white. "That's not true. I haven't taken anything from them." She also mentioned you might be having some mental health challenges. McCatherine continued, her eyes searching mine. Said you've been acting erratically, that your boyfriend is controlling you. She leaned back in her chair, studying me. Now I've worked with you for 2 years. This doesn't sound like you, but I had to ask. With trembling fingers, I pulled out my phone and showed her the police report from Christmas. Her eyes widened as she read about the assault, the dislocated finger, the knife. I'm trying to get a restraining order, I explained, my voice shaky. She's lying because I cut contact. McCatherine's face softened with a mixture of pity and professional concern. I'm so sorry you're dealing with this. But Mia, she called 3 times yesterday. My assistant fielded 2 more calls this morning. If this continues, it could affect your promotion review. I left her office feeling sick. 3 years I'd worked for that promotion. 3 years of 60-hour weeks, perfect presentations, and bringing in new clients. And my mother was trying to destroy it all with a few phone calls. James was waiting in the parking lot with coffee and my favorite sandwich. He'd started doing that, showing up with small comforts when he knew I'd need support. How bad? He asked as I slumped into the passenger seat. She's calling my work, making up lies about theft and mental problems. I took a shaky sip of coffee, the warmth doing little to stop the chill inside me. We're filing harassment charges today, James said firmly, his jaw set. My sister Ashley works at a law firm. She can help us figure out the paperwork. Ashley turned out to be a godsend. She was the middle sister, sharp as a tack, with wild curly hair and a no-nonsense attitude that I immediately admired. She sat us down at her kitchen table that evening with a stack of forms and a digital recorder. Document everything, she instructed, her voice crisp and efficient. Every call, every contact attempt, every lie. We're building a paper trail that a judge can't ignore. I spent hours writing out dates and incidents, my hand cramping as I relived each toxic memory. James sat beside me, occasionally squeezing my shoulder, a silent pillar of support. By the time we finished, we had 20 pages of documentation going back years, a meticulous history of control and emotional abuse. This is good, Ashley said, scanning through everything. It shows a clear pattern of escalation. We'll file first thing tomorrow. But my mother escalated faster than we could file paperwork. Saturday morning, I woke to a pounding on our apartment door. Not a knocking, but a heavy, rhythmic pounding that shook the walls. James checked the peephole and immediately pulled me back into the bedroom. Stay here. It's the police. My heart hammered against my ribs as he went to answer. I could hear muffled voices, then James saying loudly and clearly, No, she's not being held against her will. This is harassment. I threw on clothes and walked out to find 2 officers in our living room. The older one looked tired, like he dealt with this kind of domestic drama far too many times. Ma'am, we received a report that you're being held hostage by your boyfriend. Your mother says he's abusing you. She's lying. My voice came out steadier than I felt. I have a police report from where she assaulted me on Christmas. She dislocated my finger trying to rip off my engagement ring. I showed them the report, the photos of my injured hand, the documentation Ashley had helped us prepare. The officers exchanged a long look. The younger one actually sighed. 3rd wellness check this week that turned out to be family drama. Ma'am, you might want to consider a restraining order. We're working on it. James set his arm, a protective barrier, around my shoulders. After they left, I couldn't stop shaking. James made tea while I sat on the couch wrapped in a blanket his grandmother had made. He told me our neighbor, Mrs. Chen, had been watching through her peephole when the cops came. My mother hadn't just called the police. She had told our neighbors I was being abused. The next few days blurred into a nightmare of constant vigilance, more calls to my work, more police visits. My mother had apparently made friends with several neighbors spinning tales about her poor lost daughter, trapped by a controlling, dangerous man. Mrs. Chen started avoiding my eyes in the hallway. The guy from 3B asked James if everything was okay at home, with a look that suggested he was ready to throw hands. My mother was successfully painting me as a victim, just not of her. Then Elena started calling. Not my number. She knew I'd blocked her. She called James's phone, leaving a string of rambling, vitriolic voicemails that he'd play for me with the volume low as if to soften the blow. "Mia, this is all your fault." Her voice slurred in one message. "Derek left me. He said our family is too much drama, that it makes him look bad. You ruined everything. If you just played along, none of this would have happened." In another, she was sobbing. "You think you're so much better than us with your fancy degree and your feminist boyfriend, but you're going to end up alone just like me. Derek was the only man who ever loved me, and you drove him away." I wanted to scream back that Derek was an abuser, that she was better off without him, that love doesn't leave bruises. But what was the point? She'd made her choice long ago, and it wasn't me. The harassment charges were filed on a Tuesday. Ashley walked us through every step, making sure we had copies of everything. The clerk at the courthouse looked at our stack of evidence and whistled low. "This is thorough. Good job documenting." But filing charges just made my mother more creative. On Thursday afternoon, McCatherine called me into her office again. This time, she looked genuinely concerned, her professional mask slipping. "Mia, I need to tell you something. Your mother has been calling other departments. She told accounting you embezzle. She told HR you sell substances in the parking lot. She even called our biggest client, Sterling Financial, claiming you've been stealing their data." I sank into the chair, feeling like the floor had dropped out from under me. "I'm so sorry. I have harassment charges filed. I'm trying to stop her." "I know," McCatherine said, her voice softer now. "I've spoken to legal and they're aware of the situation, but Mia..." She paused, choosing her words carefully. "The promotion committee meets next week. This kind of disruption, even though it's not your fault, it doesn't look good." I left work early, sitting in my car in the parking lot for a long time trying not to cry. 3 years of work about to be destroyed because my mother couldn't accept that I wanted a different life. When I got home, James was on the phone with Ashley, his face grim. "She started telling people in your hometown that you joined a cult," he said, putting the phone on speaker. "My mom just got a call from her hairdresser asking if it's true that I'm a cult leader who brainwashed you." I laughed, but it came out as a hysterical, broken sound. "A cult, that's her explanation for me not wanting to be abused." "Apparently, feminism is the cult," Ashley said through the speakerphone. "She's telling everyone you've been indoctrinated by radical feminists at college and James is your handler or something." The calls kept coming. The lies got wilder. My mother claimed I was on substances, that I was pregnant with another man's baby, that James was forcing me into prostitution. Each story was more outrageous than the last, but people listened. People always listen to a crying mother worried about her daughter. My promotion review was pushed back indefinitely. McCatherine tried to be supportive, but I could see the strain in her face. Every time my mother's calls disrupted the office, security had to start screening my calls. The receptionist began recognizing my mother's voice and hanging up immediately. Then came the wedding planning. James and I had decided on a simple courthouse ceremony. After everything with my family, a big wedding felt like inviting disaster. We picked a date 3 months out, filed the paperwork quietly, and told only his sisters and a few close friends. But somehow, my mother found out. I was at work when Ashley called her voice tight with anger. "Mia, does your mother have a cousin who works at City Hall because someone just told her about your marriage license application?" My blood ran cold. "Cousin Thaddeus, he works in records." "Well, Cousin Thaddeus just became an accessory to harassment. Your mother knows your wedding date, time, and location." James picked me up from work early. We drove straight to the courthouse to see if we could change the date, but the clerk shook her head. "You'd have to reapply, pay new fees, wait another 3 days. And if someone's already checking the records, they'll just find the new date, too." We sat in the courthouse lobby trying to figure out our options. Eloping to Vegas felt like running away. Having security at a courthouse wedding felt insane. But what choice did we have? "We stick to the plan," James said, finally, his voice resolute. "Let her show up. Let her make a scene. It's more evidence for the restraining order." But I knew my mother. A scene was exactly what she wanted. The weeks leading up to the wedding were a special kind of hell. The police visits increased. My mother had perfected her concerned mother act, showing up at our apartment complex at all hours to tell anyone who would listen that her daughter was in mortal danger. The property manager started sending us formal warnings about disturbances. Elena's voicemails got nastier, more desperate. "You know Derek's brother Brandon is single. Mom thinks he'd be perfect for you. A real man who knows how to keep a woman in line. Not like that pathetic excuse you're with." I played the message for Ashley during one of our legal prep sessions. She shook her head in disgust. "Save everything. The judge needs to hear how they talk about you." Work became my only escape, but even that was tainted. I'd catch coworkers whispering, see the pitying looks when they thought I wasn't watching. My mother had called so many times that everyone knew my business. I was the drama girl, the one with the crazy family. 2 weeks before the wedding, James's parents, Catherine and Tom, offered to let us stay with them, just until things calmed down. "You both look exhausted," Catherine said gently, her eyes full of a maternal warmth I'd never known from my own mother. We packed essentials and moved into their guest room. It felt like hiding, but at least the police couldn't find us there for wellness checks. At least my mother couldn't pound on the door at 3 a.m. But she found other ways. My work emails started getting flooded with responses to job applications I hadn't sent. Apparently, I'd applied to every adult entertainment venue in the city. The emails were explicit, asking about my experience and willingness to perform certain acts. My company's IT department had to get involved to trace the source. The applications came from an IP address registered to your childhood home, the IT guy told me quietly. "Might want to change all your passwords." Again. James helped me lock down everything new passwords, 2-factor authentication security questions my mother couldn't possibly guess. But the damage was done. People at work looked at me differently now, wondering what kind of person attracts this level of drama. A week before the wedding, McCatherine called me in one last time. "Mia, I'm going to be straight with you. The promotion is off the table for now. Not because of your performance. But the board feels this situation has become too disruptive. Maybe next year, once things have calmed down." I nodded, not trusting myself to speak. 3 years of work gone. Not because of a mistake or a failure, but because my mother couldn't accept that I didn't want to be abused. James held me that night while I cried angry, frustrated tears into his chest. His sisters surrounded us, Ashley reviewing legal documents while the youngest Victoria made endless cups of tea. They had become the family I'd always wanted, supportive, kind, and normal. "We could postpone the wedding," James suggested gently. "Wait until the restraining order goes through." "No." I wiped my eyes, feeling something hard and defiant crystallize inside me. "She's taken my promotion. She's not taking this too." The morning of our wedding dawned gray and drizzly, perfect weather for what was about to happen. Ashley had arranged for courthouse security to be on alert. James's parents and sisters would be our only guests, our witnesses to whatever chaos my mother had planned. We arrived early, going through security and finding our assigned courtroom. Every footstep echoed in the marble hallway. Every opening door made my heart race. But for 20 minutes, nothing happened. Just us, and the people who actually loved us waiting for our turn with the judge. Then the doors burst open. My mother stormed in wearing her best church dress, the one she saved for trying to impress people. Behind her was Elena, glassy-eyed and unsteady, and a man I'd never seen before who must have been Brandon. He looked like Derek, but softer, like someone had put Derek's face on a teddy bear. "Stop this blasphemy right now!" My mother's voice echoed off the high walls. "My daughter is clearly not in her right mind." Security moved immediately, but my mother was faster. She grabbed my arm, her nails digging in through the sleeve of my dress. "Mia, baby, this isn't you. This man has poisoned your mind. Brandon here is willing to forgive everything to take you back to the right path." Brandon stepped forward with a rehearsed, placid smile. "Hi, Mia. Your mother's told me so much about you. I think we could be really happy together. I know how to handle a strong-willed woman." James moved between us, his voice deadly calm. "Let go of her, now." "You shut your mouth." My mother whirled on him. "You're not man enough for my daughter. You let her work. You let her think she's equal. Brandon knows a woman's place." Security finally reached us, pulling my mother back. She fought them, screaming about brainwashing and cults and feminism destroying families. Elena stood there swaying, occasionally adding slurred comments about real men and proper wives. "Ma'am, you need to leave," the security guard said firmly. "You're disrupting court proceedings." "I'll contest this marriage," my mother shrieked as they dragged her toward the door. "She's mentally incompetent. Feminism has poisoned her mind. This isn't legal." The doors closed on her threats, but we could still hear her screaming in the hallway. The judge, who'd watched the whole thing with raised eyebrows, cleared his throat. "Would you like a few minutes?" "No," I said, surprising myself with how steady my voice was. "We'd like to get married now." The ceremony was short and sweet. James's family cried happy tears while we exchanged rings, the same rings my mother had tried to destroy. When the judge pronounced us married, I felt something inside me finally break free. Not broken, but free. We were walking out officially married when Ashley's phone rang. She listened for a moment, then her face went pale. "That was my office. Your mother just submitted paperwork trying to get power of attorney over you. She's claiming you're mentally incompetent due to feminist indoctrination." I stopped in the middle of the courthouse lobby, feeling the weight of it all crash down. The harassment, the lost promotion, the constant attacks, and now this, my own mother trying to legally control me because I wouldn't submit to abuse. "She listed Elena as a supporting witness," Ashley continued. "They're claiming you need intervention before you hurt yourself or others." James's hand found mine, solid and warm and real. His family surrounded us, protective and furious on my behalf, and in that moment, I made a decision. "Okay," I said, squaring my shoulders. "If she wants a legal fight, she'll get one. I'm done running. I'm done hiding. She wants to prove I'm crazy, let her try." Ashley smiled, a sharp lawyer-like smile. "Good. Because I've been documenting everything. Every call, every lie, every police visit. We're going to bury her in evidence." As we left the courthouse officially married and ready for war, I thought about the girl I used to be. The one who practiced saying, "Whatever you think is best, honey," until the words felt like poison in her mouth. That girl was gone. She had been replaced by someone who knew her worth. My mother had tried to break me. Instead, she'd helped forge me into someone stronger, someone who wouldn't apologize for existing. The war was just beginning, but for the first time, I was ready to fight. The next morning, Ashley had us in her office by 8:00 a.m. She'd pulled in favors to get an emergency consultation with her firm's senior partner, a formidable woman named Margaret, who specialized in family law and harassment cases. Margaret reviewed our mountain of documentation with laser focus, occasionally making sharp, concise notes in the margins. "Your mother's power of attorney filing is concerning, but poorly executed," Margaret said, tapping her pen against the desk. "She's claiming mental incompetence based on ideological differences. No competent judge will take that seriously, but we need to respond aggressively." She outlined our strategy while I took notes, my hand still shaking slightly. We would file counter-documentation from my therapist, gather character witnesses from work, submit evidence of my academic achievements and professional success. We would build an overwhelming case that I was not only competent, but thriving despite my family's interference. James squeezed my hand under the table. "What about the harassment at her workplace? Can we use that?" "Absolutely. In fact, it strengthens our position," Margaret confirmed, pulling out more forms. "We're going to file for an emergency restraining order based on the courthouse incident and the documented workplace harassment. The power of attorney attempt shows a clear and dangerous escalation." We spent 3 hours in that office signing documents and providing evidence. The retainer fee made me wince. There went half my savings for the honeymoon we'd planned. But what choice did I have? That afternoon, I returned to work to find McCatherine waiting by my desk. My stomach sank. Had my mother called again? "Mia, we need to talk about yesterday," she said, but her expression was softer than I expected. "It finished their investigation. Your mother sent those inappropriate job applications from her home computer. We're pressing charges for identity theft and cyber harassment." Relief flooded through me so potent it almost made me dizzy. "Thank you. I'm so sorry about all of this disruption." "Stop apologizing." McCatherine's voice was firm. "You're being stalked and harassed. HR wants to implement new security protocols. Your mother and sister are banned from the premises. If they show up, security will call the police immediately." But my mother was always 2 steps ahead. 3 days later, I was in the middle of presenting quarterly reports to our biggest client, Sterling Financial, when the conference room door burst open. My mother stood there in her Sunday best Elena beside her, looking hollow-eyed and desperate. "There she is." My mother's voice filled the room. "My poor daughter who's been brainwashed by feminists. We're here to save you, honey." The clients, 2 older men in expensive suits, looked between us in stunned shock. I stood frozen, my presentation remote slipping from my numb hand. "Mia needs help." Elena added her words slightly slurred. "She's been poisoned against her family, against God's plan for women." Security arrived within minutes, but the damage was done. My mother managed to shout about my mental illness and dangerous lifestyle before being dragged out, Elena stumbling after her crying about how I'd ruined her life. The clients left immediately. The contract worth $2 million walked out the door with them. McCatherine found me in the bathroom, 20 minutes later, dry heaving into the toilet. "The clients called," she said, her voice heavy with resignation. "They're pulling the account. They said they can't work with a company that has security issues." I wanted to scream to rage, to drive to my mother's house and shake her until she understood what she'd done. Instead, I sat on the cold tile of the bathroom floor and felt everything crumbling around me. "Take the rest of the week off," McCatherine said gently. "We'll figure this out." But there was nothing to figure out. My mother had cost the company a major client. No matter how understanding McCatherine tried to be, I knew my career there was over. James picked me up, his face grim. "Ashley called. The restraining order was approved. Your mother and Elena can't come within 500 feet of you, your home or your workplace." Small comfort when my workplace might not want me anymore. The restraining order just made my mother more creative. She couldn't approach me directly, so she went after everyone around me. James's elderly landlord, Mrs. Richardson, called him the next day. "Your mother is very worried about you," she told me when I answered James's phone. "She says you're in danger. That nice woman explained how that man is controlling you, keeping you from your family." "Mrs. Richardson, she's lying. We have a restraining order against her because she attacked us." "Oh dear." The elderly woman sounded confused. "But she seemed so concerned. She even showed me pictures of you as a little girl. Said she just wants her baby back." James spent an hour on the phone with Mrs. Richardson explaining the situation, but the seed of doubt was planted. Every time we saw her in the hallway, she watched us with worried, pitying eyes. Then came the honeymoon disaster. We'd scaled back our plans drastically. No tropical vacation, just a quiet weekend at a cabin 2 hours north. We needed the peace and the chance to just breathe without looking over our shoulders. We had been there exactly one night when the police showed up. We received a report of a kidnapping, the officer said, his hand resting on his weapon. A woman named Mia, being held against her will. I stood there in my pajamas, my new wedding ring glinting in the harsh porch light. "I'm Mia. This is my husband. We're on our honeymoon." "Ma'am, we need to verify that you're here voluntarily. Can we speak to you privately?" They separated us, asking me the same questions over and over. Was I being threatened? Did I need help? Was I afraid? Meanwhile, James sat in the back of a police car while they ran his background check. "My mother filed a false report," I explained for the 5th time. "We have a restraining order. She's trying to ruin our honeymoon." The officers finally believed me after I showed them the court documents on my phone. But the damage was done. We spent our honeymoon night giving statements instead of celebrating our marriage. "I can't do this anymore," I sobbed into James's chest when the police finally left. "She's never going to stop. Never." "Yes, she will," James said firmly, holding me tight. "We're going to make her stop." But how do you stop someone who believes they're saving you? The social media campaign started the following week. Elena, who had barely used social media before, suddenly became very active. She began posting constantly pictures of Brandon Derrick's brother with captions about real men who know how to lead, long rambling posts about the dangers of feminism, prayer requests for her lost sister trapped in a toxic, controlling relationship. My phone buzzed with notifications from concerned acquaintances and former classmates asking if I was okay. Distant relatives messaged me offering to pray for my soul. Each message felt like another small, deliberate cut. Then Brandon started showing up places, first at the coffee shop where James and I had our morning ritual. He just happened to be there reading a newspaper and watching us over the top of it. Then at the grocery store, always one aisle over, at the park where we walked on Sundays. He's not technically violating the restraining order, Ashley explained when we called her. He's not approaching you or making contact. We can document it, but unless he escalates, the police can't do much. Living under surveillance was exhausting. We started varying our routines, taking different routes, shopping at different stores. But Brandon, our mother's new proxy, always found us. The breaking point came when I discovered the true extent of my mother's sabotage. I was cleaning out my old email account, the one my mother had used to send those job applications, when I found the sent folder. Hundreds of emails, resignation letters sent to my employer, inflammatory messages to professional contacts, emails to my college professors claiming I'd cheated on exams. She's been doing this for weeks. I told James, my voice hollow as I scrolled through message after message. Maybe months. Look, she emailed my internship supervisor from 3 years ago saying I stole from the company. My professional reputation, so carefully built over years, had been systematically destroyed by my own mother. Ashley helped us document everything for the criminal case: identity theft, cyber harassment, defamation. The charges were piling up, but my mother remained convinced she was saving me. The preliminary hearing was a circus. My mother arrived with a group from her church, all wearing matching T-shirts with Bible verses about honoring thy father and mother. Elena sat in the front row, her new boyfriend, Brandon, beside her, both glaring at me like I was the devil incarnate. My daughter has been brainwashed, my mother told the judge, tears streaming down her face. That man has poisoned her mind with feminist ideology. She needs intervention before it's too late. My therapist testified about my mental health, confirming I was of sound mind and had been dealing with prolonged family trauma. My mother actually laughed during her testimony. "Of course the therapist supports her delusions," she said loudly. "They're all part of the same feminist agenda." The judge had to call for order multiple times. When Elena took the stand, she could barely stay focused, rambling about how I'd destroyed her life by making Derrick leave. "He said our family was too dramatic," she slurred. "Said it made him look bad at work. But it's all Mia's fault. If she'd just been a proper woman, none of this would have happened." Then came the revelation that changed everything. During cross-examination, Ashley asked Elena about Derrick leaving. "When exactly did Derrick say your family was too dramatic? After Mom called his work," Elena hiccuped. "She wanted to tell his boss what a good wife I was, but they said she was crazy, and she—" Elena trailed off, the color draining from her face as she realized what she'd just admitted. My mother had sabotaged Elena's relationship just like she was sabotaging mine. The difference was Elena's abuser had left while James had stayed. "How many times did your mother call Derrick's workplace?" Ashley pressed her voice calm and steady. "I don't know. A lot. She said she was helping, showing them what a devoted girlfriend I was, but Derrick got fired." Elena started crying, real gut-wrenching sobs. "He left because of her, not Mia, because of Mom." The courtroom erupted. My mother was screaming that Elena was confused, a liar. The church group was praying loudly. Brandon was trying to comfort Elena while she pushed him away. When order was finally restored, the judge looked exhausted. "I've seen enough. The restraining order is extended for 2 years. Criminal charges will proceed." He looked directly at my mother. "And ma'am, I strongly suggest you seek professional help." "I don't need help," my mother screamed as court officers moved to escort her out. "My daughters need help. They're both possessed by feminist demons." Elena didn't leave with them. She sat in the courtroom after everyone had filed out, staring at her hands. I approached cautiously, James a silent presence beside me. "He hit me because he was stressed about work," she said quietly, not looking at me. "And Mom kept calling, making it worse. She got him fired, Mia. She destroyed my life too." "It's not too late," I said gently. "You can get help. You can start over." Elena finally looked at me, her eyes hollow pits of despair. "I don't know how to be anything else. She trained us our whole lives. I don't know how to not be this." We got Elena into therapy that week with the same therapist who'd been helping me. It was a start, but I knew the road ahead would be long. My mother, meanwhile, escalated one final, terrifying time. I came home from a job interview McCatherine had given me a glowing reference, despite everything to find our apartment door slightly ajar. James was still at work. My heart pounded as I pushed the door wider. The destruction was methodical. Every single piece of professional clothing I owned was shredded and scattered across the bedroom. Business suits cut to ribbons, blouses torn apart. Taped to each ruined piece was a handwritten Bible verse about women's submission and obedience. But it was the message written in bright red lipstick on the bedroom mirror that broke me. "I brought you into this world. I can take you out of it." Security footage showed my mother using Elena's key, the spare key I'd forgotten she had. She had spent 2 hours methodically destroying everything that represented my professional life, my independence. "This is evidence," the detective said, photographing everything. "With the death threat and the breaking and entering, she's looking at real jail time." But I didn't feel victorious. I sat among the ruins of my wardrobe, holding a piece of what used to be my favorite interview suit, and just felt tired. So deeply, bone-achingly tired. James found me there an hour later. He didn't say anything, just sat on the floor beside me and held me while I cried. His sisters arrived soon after Ashley with legal documents, Victoria with tea and cookies, and the third sister, Jenny, with shopping bags full of clothes from her own closet. "We're your family now," Catherine said firmly, James's mother having arrived with a large container of homemade soup. "That woman gave birth to you, but she's not your mother. Not anymore." The trial was set for 3 months later. My mother was released on bail with strict conditions. No contact, no coming within 1,000 feet, no internet access. But I knew it wasn't over. It would never really be over. Elena moved in with us temporarily while she got back on her feet. She was trying, going to therapy twice a week, getting sober. Some days were better than others. Some days she'd rage about how I'd ruined everything. Other days she'd cry and apologize for helping our mother hurt me. "I see it now," she told me one evening, both of us curled up on the couch with tea. "The training, the control. It wasn't love. It was never love." "No," I agreed, my voice soft. "It wasn't." My career slowly recovered. A smaller firm hired me. Their HR department, fully briefed and understanding after McCatherine's reference, explained everything. It wasn't the promotion I'd worked for, but it was a fresh start, a place where I wasn't the drama girl. James and I found a new apartment in a high-security building with cameras and a doorman. We changed our phone numbers, abandoned social media, and created new routines. We built a fortress around our new life, protecting the peace we'd fought so hard to find. But sometimes late at night, I'd wake up thinking I heard pounding on the door. Sometimes I'd see a woman with my mother's haircut at the store and have to leave my cart behind, my heart racing. The trauma lingered a ghost in the corners of our hard-won happiness. "She trained us to be victims," Elena said during one of her clearer moments. "And when you refused, she couldn't handle it." As the trial date approached, I prepared myself for one final confrontation, one last battle before I could truly be free. My mother had tried to break me, control me, and destroy everything I'd built. But I was still standing, bruised, exhausted, but standing. And I was ready to fight one last time. The trial date arrived faster than I expected. 3 months of intensive therapy sessions, legal preparations, and sleepless nights had all led to this moment. I wore one of Jenny's suits, a crisp navy blue outfit that felt like armor. It was professional, strong, and nothing like the shredded remains my mother had left behind. Elena sat with us on the prosecution side. her hands folded tightly in her lap. She'd gained some weight back and her skin had a healthier color, but her eyes still darted nervously toward the defense table where our mother would sit. The courtroom filled quickly. My mother's church group occupied several rows, their matching prayer shawls creating a sea of beige piety. Brandon sat among them, still wearing that unsettling, placid smile whenever he caught my eye. My mother entered with her lawyer, dressed conservatively in black. She had lost weight in the preceding months, her face gaunt and hollowed. When she saw Elena sitting with me, her expression twisted into something ugly, a mask of betrayal and rage. The prosecutor, a no-nonsense woman named Joanna, laid out the case methodically. The Christmas assault, the workplace harassment, the false police reports, the cyber-stalking, the break-in, the property destruction. Each charge was supported by a mountain of documentation, security footage, and witness testimony. McCatherine testified about the lost Sterling financial client, the constant disruptions, the damage to company operations. She kept her testimony factual and professional, but I could see the frustration in her eyes when she described the $2 million contract walking out the door. Mrs. Richardson took the stand next, explaining how my mother had approached her multiple times crying about her kidnapped daughter. The elderly woman seemed confused by the whole situation and kept asking the judge if she'd done something wrong by simply listening to a worried mother. Then came the security footage from my apartment. The courtroom watched in silence as the video played on the large screens, showing my mother methodically destroying every piece of professional clothing I owned. The precision of it, the sheer time she took attaching the handwritten Bible verses to each ruined garment was chilling. When the camera caught her writing the death threat on the mirror, several members of the jury visibly recoiled. My mother's defense was exactly what I expected. Her lawyer painted her as a concerned, devout parent, driven to extremes by worry for her daughter's safety and soul. They brought up character witnesses from her church, each one testifying about what a devoted, God-fearing mother she had always been. She just loves her daughter so much. One woman testified, dabbing her eyes with a tissue. Sometimes that love makes people do desperate things. But the prosecution had Elena. My sister took the stand on day 2 wearing a simple dress that covered the last of the fading bruises on her arms. She spoke quietly at first, her voice trembling as she described our childhood training, the books balanced on our heads, the practice phrases of submission, the way our mother rewarded compliance and punished independence. She called Derrick's workplace 17 times. Elena said, her voice growing stronger as she spoke her truth. I counted later. I went through his phone records 17 times, telling his boss what a good girlfriend I was, how I ironed his shirts and packed his lunches. They fired him for the disruption. The defense attorney tried to shake her testimony, suggesting she was confused, manipulated by me. But Elena held firm. My mother didn't save me from Derrick. She drove him away with her interference, just like she's trying to destroy Mia's life. The only difference is Mia found someone strong enough to stay. My mother couldn't contain herself. She stood up, pointing a trembling finger at Elena. You ungrateful child, I gave you everything I taught you, how to be a proper woman. The judge banged his gavel, calling for order and threatening contempt charges, but the damage was done. The jury had seen the real woman behind the concerned mother mask. I testified last. Joanna walked me through everything chronologically, letting the evidence speak for itself. When we reached the part about the destroyed wardrobe, she had me identify pieces of clothing from the evidence photos. This was my interview suit, I said, my voice clear and steady as I held up a photo of the navy fabric cut to ribbons. I wore it to every important meeting for 3 years. And this... Joanna held up another photo. My Northwestern graduation dress, I said. My mother didn't attend the ceremony, but I kept the dress anyway. Knowing the defense's cross-examination focused on my radical feminist beliefs and how I'd abandoned family values. They tried to paint me as an ungrateful daughter who'd chosen a career over family. Isn't it true you refused to date men your mother approved of? The defense attorney asked. My mother approved of men who controlled and monitored me, I replied calmly. So, yes, I refused. And you chose to pursue a career instead of starting a family. I chose to pursue both, I stated. I have a career, and I have a loving marriage. They are not mutually exclusive. The jury deliberated for 6 hours. Elena and I waited in a small, windowless room with James and Ashley drinking terrible courthouse coffee and jumping every time the door opened. My mother's church group held a prayer circle in the hallway until security made them move to the lobby. When the verdict came, I gripped James's hand so tight I probably cut off his circulation. Guilty on all counts: criminal harassment, cyber harassment, identity theft, breaking and entering, property destruction over $5,000, making criminal threats. My mother's face went white. She turned to stare at me as the judge read the sentences. 2 years for the combined harassment charges, 18 months for breaking and entering, 1 year for property destruction, 3 years for the death threat, to be served concurrently with the possibility of parole after 18 months. Additionally, the judge continued, his voice ringing with finality, the defendant is ordered to pay full restitution for all damaged property and documented lost wages. The existing restraining order will be extended for 10 years upon her release. They led my mother away in handcuffs. She didn't scream or cry. She just stared at me with those hollow, empty eyes. The church group filtered out slowly, some crying, others muttering about injustice. Brandon lingered, approaching us despite Ashley stepping protectively closer. "This isn't over," he said quietly, his creepy smile fixed in place. "Your mother was trying to save you. Someone needs to continue her work." "That sounds like a threat," Ashley said, already pulling out her phone. "Would you like to repeat that for the police?" He backed away, hands raised, that smile finally faltering. The next few weeks felt surreal. My mother was actually gone, locked away where she couldn't reach me. No more wellness checks, no more workplace calls, no more looking over my shoulder. Elena struggled with a complex cocktail of guilt and relief. Some days she'd blame herself for testifying. Other days she'd rage about the lost years of manipulation. Her therapist increased her sessions to 3 times a week. "I don't know who I am without her voice in my head," she told me one evening. "Every decision I make, I still hear her telling me I'm doing it wrong." Work gradually returned to a new normal. The whispers stopped. The pitying looks faded. McCatherine even mentioned that next year's promotion cycle looked promising, though we both knew it would take time to fully rebuild the trust I had lost through no fault of my own. James's family enveloped us completely. Sunday dinners at his parents' house became our new routine. His sisters included Elena in everything, teaching her through their actions that family could mean support instead of control, laughter instead of criticism. 6 months into my mother's sentence, I got a letter. The prison return address made my hands shake. James offered to read it first, but I knew I needed to do it myself. It was exactly what I expected. There was no apology, no acknowledgement of wrongdoing, just Bible verses about honoring thy mother and dire warnings about my eternal soul. She'd found religion in prison, she wrote. She was praying for my salvation. I burned it in the kitchen sink, watching the edges curl and blacken. Elena watched from the doorway. "Did you read it?" she asked. "Yeah, same old mom, still trying to save my soul." Elena laughed, but the sound was hollow. At least she's consistent. The first anniversary of the trial passed quietly. Elena had moved into her own apartment by then, a small studio she was slowly decorating with plants and photos of us. She'd started taking community college classes, thinking maybe about becoming a counselor herself. "I want to help other women like us," she explained, "the ones who don't know they're being abused because it's been disguised as love." Brandon eventually stopped his surveillance after Ashley filed another harassment charge against him. We heard through Elena's sources that he'd found another strong-willed woman to handle. We just hoped she'd escape faster than Elena had. My career slowly rebuilt. The promotion came through eventually. It wasn't the one I'd originally wanted, but it was good enough. I learned to stop apologizing for the chaos my family had brought into my life. McCatherine became something of a mentor, sharing her own stories of difficult family members. The difference, as she told me once, is that you stood up to yours. Not everyone has that courage. James and I renewed our vows on our second anniversary. A proper ceremony this time on a sunny beach with his family and our chosen friends. Elena was my maid of honor, still fragile in some ways, but standing tall and radiant beside me. There were no disruptions, no drama, just love and support and the beautiful, simple joy of a normal family. My mother served 18 months before being granted parole. We learned about it through official channels. The victim notification system worked exactly as designed. She had been released to a halfway house 2 states away, a condition of her parole. The 10-year restraining order meant she couldn't return to our city, couldn't come near us. Elena panicked when we got the notification. Old patterns die hard, and a terrified part of her still expected our mother to show up on her doorstep immediately. But days passed, then weeks, then months. There was no contact, no violations, just blessed, wonderful silence. Maybe prison actually changed her, Elena said hopefully one day. I doubted it. More likely, she'd just found new people to control new daughters to save. But that wasn't my problem anymore. The last I heard through a distant relative who still sent occasional unsolicited updates, she had joined a new, even more fervent church in her halfway house city. She told everyone there about her 2 daughters who had been led astray by feminism and a hostile world. She told them how she had tried to save them and had been persecuted for her maternal love. She told them how she prayed every single day for their return to righteousness. Let her pray. Let her tell her stories to anyone who would listen. She couldn't hurt us anymore. Her words were just echoes from a life I no longer lived, a ghost story that had lost its power to frighten me. I had a life she couldn't touch, a love she couldn't break, and a future she had no part in. She had tried to destroy me, but all she had managed to do was set me free.